Shawna, are you getting enough protein?
Well, I know I am getting enough protein because I quantify it. I really pay attention, but most women think they're getting enough. But the reality is that most midlife women are getting less than they need for their metabolism and for optimal health. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about all the mistakes that women are making related to protein.
And before we dive in, we of course want to give a shout out to our Girls Talk Healthy Aging listener, Miss Connor Burgess. Thanks for listening. Now let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Well, you know, it's so funny because on socials, you see all these memes that women think it's their part-time job to hit their protein requirement. Have you seen those around?
Yes, I'm not on social as much as anymore lately, but I have seen these things, and I also hear from my real life ladies that I see in real person, not just on social, about how much of a struggle it is for them to get protein when they're working on making changes to their eating. That is a struggle.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is that we need protein, but we don't need massive amounts of protein. And that's kind of the problem, I think, is that the pendulum has swung to the, like way out there, that now there's protein water, protein chips, protein. I saw a meme that I can't wait till there's protein wine.
Mm-hmm. And one of them, we're talking about mistakes that ladies make when it comes to protein. And one I would say is trusting what's on the label, or what's on when I say the label, I mean the front of the box.
The marketing,
because some of these things that are marketed as high in protein, in fact, are not. And so that's one of the big mistakes that gals are making. They're buying all these things you're talking about, the protein water and these things, but some of them don't have, they really are not a protein at all.
No, not at all. And lots of times they will be more of a fat source than a protein source. Like, one of our pet peeves is that people think that peanut butter or nuts are a great source of protein, when in fact they are not. They're a great source of energy or fat.
Yeah, so I think that kind of falls into two different mistakes. One, trusting what's on the label, and two, just being completely wrong in our understanding of what we've been taught, or what we've been told, or what we think we know. I have ladies that are convinced that peanut butter is a protein. And so they feel like, well, I'm getting protein because I'm eating this on the regular. And it is tricky because we've got the marketing that puts protein really big on the label, even if there's that protein is not the majority of what's in that, or there may not even be a lot of protein. And then we have things that we just have understood through time, that we have been maybe told or sold that nuts are a protein, when in fact nuts are a fat primarily. They do have some protein. Peanut butter, a fat primarily. Now, then I would say one of the third mistakes is, then once I tell ladies, well, nuts are fat, peanut butter is a fat, well, I thought it was good for you. So then there's that third mistake of, we think that things that aren't a protein are not good for us. Then it's in the bad category all of a sudden. And so our understanding of not just protein, but also how protein fits into the whole puzzle, or the whole pie of our food allowances for the day, because we're going to eat food, and how does it all break down? Carbs, fats, protein. Understanding what that looks like and understanding what foods go where is one of the big challenges, that is either keeping women from they think they're doing better than they are, or they just get really frustrated and they say, throwing my hands in the air, like, I just don't care because this is too hard. I don't understand. This is too hard, Shawna.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they, as you say, they just get overwhelmed. And so my suggestion, and I know that you have done this with your clients or in the past, maybe not forever, but doing some food logging, because when you know more, you do better. And it's such a reality check when people start to look at what the food contains. I think, as you mentioned, because you're hearing all this about protein being the superhero, which it actually is in a lot of ways. However, it's not. We shouldn't be eating protein at the cost of all the other things. So if an item doesn't have protein in it, our body still needs it. So let's do just a little, I'm going to just do a quick breakdown of our 3 macros, if that's all right, Alli. All right. So first of all, we have protein. Protein is 4 calories per gram, basically, and it is needed for repairing muscle. It helps keep you fuller longer. So it keeps you satiated. It is the macro that actually burns the most amount of calories in the processing of it.
As you're digesting it, it burns the most.
As you're digesting it, exactly. Yeah, it's got the highest thermogenic effect. Protein.
Yeah. So it takes more effort to break down protein than it does, especially like a simple carb like sugar, or especially a liquid sugar. Like if I drink some kind of juice or sweetened drink, that takes nothing for my body to break that down. It breaks down really quickly. But if I eat on some chicken, it's going to be a lot harder for my body. It's going to take more work, and the thermogenic effect is going to be higher. So my body's going to burn more calories just breaking that food down. It's going to be work.
Correct. And then we have fat, and fat is 9 calories per gram. It takes the longest to digest. And our body needs fat. Our brain is made of fat.
Which is why it does give us some sense of fullness when we have some fat. If we don't have any fat, we're going to gnaw our arm off.
Yeah, correct. Fat slows down digestion. It takes a long time to digest fat. So it keeps you fuller longer. So if you've ever tried like a no-fat diet, like you said, you are constantly hungry. Fat also gives you that mouthfeel that's so satisfying. And then the third macro is carbohydrates, and carbs get labeled as bad. I've talked to, how many women have you talked to that say I can't have carbs?
We may have to do another follow-up episode on the mistakes that we make related to carbohydrates. I know we're going to focus on protein today, but absolutely that is one that women are afraid to eat carbs, and we don't understand what carbs are. So that's a whole nother episode, Shawna.
Yes, maybe we'll do a whole episode on carbs, but our brains prefer carbohydrates for energy unless we are in ketogenesis, which is
miserable.
Yes. I think
which is miserable.
I think we just wrap it up by saying that. Yes. And
that's when you cut your carbs way out, really low, and your body has to find another way,
energy source,
another way to get energy. Yeah, so we cannot think so clearly when our carbs drop too low. Our brain cells love carbohydrates, so that's important to have.
Yeah, and then the fourth macro we could say is alcohol, and that's 7 calories per gram. We're not going to talk about alcohol today, but it is kind of its own macro group because it's digested entirely differently than all the other macronutrients.
And just long story short, it does not give us anything that our body needs. Like carbs give us something that we need. Fats give us things that we need. Protein gives us things that we need. Alcohol does not. So that's kind of the long and short of alcohol.
Yeah, it's
something that people enjoy, and we won't get in. But as far as actually the nutrient or lack thereof of nutrients,
yeah, exactly. So protein of late has been getting it's kind of like the star student. Most women, I would say, are not getting enough protein. There's a marketing push that we have to put protein in everything.
To make us think that we are getting enough protein, and to sell us, of course. One of the things with marketing is if protein is popular and it's all the rage, if I tell you that my product has some protein in it, you're going to be more likely to take your hard-earned money out of your wallet and put it in my hand. And so companies recognize that.
Yeah. And so you're going to be seeing the label of protein on everything, but is that protein actually
of any substantial or
Correct. Yeah. And because oftentimes, like for example, one of my clients sent me the label for some protein chips, and it was actually a greater amount of fat than there was.
They were fat chips. But just think, Shawna, if they put fat on the front of the label, no one's going to buy that. So that is one of the ways that we are victims of
marketing,
of just not understanding. And so it's really easy for marketers to take advantage, because they're not worried about what happens when you buy protein chips in your mind, but they're really fat chips, and then you're frustrated because they've gotten their money. So they're good. Yeah, we're not good, but they're good.
You know, and I think that a lot of women, a mistake they make is they think, okay, I don't need to slam protein because I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to, pack muscle on my body. In fact, I don't even want to get muscular. So we need to kind of disassociate the idea that I eat protein and I'm going to get bulky. That's not going to happen. In fact, I wish it were so easy.
We get squishy when we don't eat enough protein.
Yes, but the bigger piece of getting bulky, or not even getting bulky, of even just adding any muscle to your body, is that you have to move. You need to be doing resistance training. And even at that, when we have our protein intake correctly and we're moving correctly, we don't have the hormones that we are going to put slabs of muscle on and that we're going to get big and bulky. If we're getting big and bulky, it's likely that our calories are too high. And
we're getting big and bulky because we are getting bigger, because our food is not in a calorie deficit if we're trying to get leaner. And one of the big mistakes that women make is overestimating how easy adding muscle is. That's not an easy feat for us gals to add. It's very small amounts of muscle or strength or tone are actually really tough to add. And especially, and the more trained you are, the harder it is. Like the longer you've been working out and the more you work out, the harder it is to add new strength, new muscle tone.
Yeah. And so we'll just kind of dip into this just a little bit, is if Mrs. Jones starts to do some resistance training, the first adaptations might not be muscular development. It's going to be neurological development. It's like she's just going to learn how to move more efficiently. But then as she continues with that movement, and then hopefully as she supports that movement with adding some protein on top of it, then that is when she's going to have the opportunity to help put more muscle on her frame. And, we want muscle on our bodies, especially as we age, because there's something called sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting. So as we age, when we are not moving, when we are not supporting our muscles with the adequate amounts of protein, our body tends to lose muscle over time. So that is not just an aesthetic problem. That's not just a how we look problem. That means that we are less able to function. We can't move as effectively. We are at risk of falling and breaking bones. So adding muscle and maintaining our muscle is a really important anti-aging, or I hate that anti-aging.
Oh yeah, but it is. Yeah.
But it helps us age more healthily.
Yes.
And in order for us to have that muscle, two factors are important. Eating protein, and the mistake people make is they think, I'm just going to eat the protein, but they need to do the movement. They need to do some kind of resistance training on top of eating the protein.
And I think one mistake that we make, Shawna, is when we hear someone like Shawna say the terms adding muscle, the words adding muscle, the image that most of us go to when we think of adding muscle to our body, I think we instantly as women get at least a lot of us get a picture of someone who is very muscular. And we don't get the real picture of real life of adding muscle. A lot of times you don't even see that. Like
Correct.
a lot of people that is not, you may feel it, you can do more, you have more strength, you have more ability, but adding muscle is not like some big thing that you see. Now, if you get really lean and because you are eating in a calorie deficit and you get extremely lean, you will see more of that toned tissue, and you'll see more of the shape of the muscle. We all have muscle, and anybody who gets really lean, you're going to start seeing the shape of their muscle. But that is a mistake that when we hear adding muscle to our frame, the image that comes into our brain is muscle. What we hear, when we just heard of muscle, we think about the picture, the skeleton. When you see a picture, when we learn about in anatomy about the muscles, it's this person who has no skin, no fat. It's this image of no skin, no fat. Well, that is not real life. We don't walk around with no skin, no fat, no other tissue except just seeing all of our muscles. So that is not what adding muscle looks like in real life on a frame that has skin and fat and other tissue there.
Yeah, on a normal person's frame.
So we think about the musculoskeletal system and the pictures we see from anatomy, and that is not real life.
So generally, when I talk to my clients and women about adding muscle, they might ask, well, how do I know if I'm adding muscle? And so because there can be some visual changes. Sometimes your clothes fit better because muscle is more dense. It takes up less space. So sometimes you might be adding a bit of muscle and reducing a bit of fat. So the scale might stay the same, but your clothes will fit differently because muscle takes up less space. So that's one. Number two, and this is really important because one takes a long time, but two happens, in a couple weeks where it's like, I just feel like I am stronger. I can get up the stairs.
More capable.
Yes, I can
handle this body, and I'm not getting tired as easily because I'm strong enough to carry the weight of my own self around.
Yeah, so that I can, exactly. I can move more efficiently. Maybe if I am weight training, maybe I'm picking up heavier weights, or maybe the weights that I have, I can do more reps with. And I mean, this again, Alli, this is a whole nother topic of how do we build muscle that will go to maybe at another time. But the fact is that if you want to be stronger, we have to be moving and we have to be eating the protein to help to that end.
And as women, it can be, I know for me, like if I don't feel strong, I feel more vulnerable as a female. If I'm at the gas pump and pumping my gas, or if I'm just walking, wherever, I like to know that I can handle my frame, at least my own size, and maybe bigger than my size as just a woman. And that's one of the, like you said, that's one of the important reasons to get these macronutrients and get all of them and make sure that we're getting enough of the protein, which we're talking about today. And
I just wanted to address the idea that, that protein will cause weight gain. And that is a mistake that women make because they think that, I'm just going to bulk up. And
which equates to weight gain in our minds. Yeah. And the way you would gain, now let's say one way you would gain weight, well, muscle, like you said, muscle's more dense. The other thing is if you just keep eating way out of balance, which most of us are already doing if we're wanting to get leaner. We're already eating out of balance. If you keep doing that and then you just start doing strength training, yes, the fat is not going to melt away and you're going to feel like you're getting bulkier. And you may, in fact, be getting bulkier because you may even be eating more now because you may be justifying, well, I went and worked out, so now I'm going to go get a blizzard and I burned this many calories. Let me go eat this many calories. But that is not from eating too much lean protein, or from getting stronger.
Yeah, because
that's from our eating and eating out of balance.
So I had one client specifically that was quite underweight. And so my recommendation was she wasn't eating maybe 40 grams of protein. And we're going to talk about how many grams of protein people need. But so she was eating very much under eating protein. And so my suggestion to her was and I gave her suggestions on what exactly to eat. But what we were trying to do was increase her protein, but also increase her calories. So she did gain weight because she was in a calorie surplus. And that's what you're talking about. So it depends on your goals. Most women that we talk to are not in that situation where it's like, I want to gain weight. Most women want to either maintain or lose weight.
And now we have the category of women that have got maybe on GLP-1s and they want to be more toned. That's a newer thing that we're seeing. Yeah. Another group of women they're focused and they're becoming more interested in resistance training and strength training.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is great because, eating protein supports retention of the muscle that you have during weight loss, which is really important because
absolutely
the muscle is metabolically active. It burns more calories even at rest. So my goal, and one of the reasons why I quantify the protein intake that I have daily, just even if I'm doing the mental math, is that I want to hold on to every ounce of muscle that I have as I age, because it's going to make me look better. More importantly, it's going to help me function. So let's talk about protein recommendations. And I'm going to refer to Dr. Stuart Phillips. He is one of the world's leading experts on protein and protein metabolism. And he was our guest on episode 51 and episode 111. And there's a lot of talk over how much protein you need daily. And it's come down to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or per desired kilogram of body weight. So that's a little bit less than, I always did the 1 gram per pound. So 1.6 grams per kilo is just a little bit less. And to be honest, I still stick with the gram per pound.
I trend probably a little bit like you, to the higher side. We're also very active and
yeah. And so, but there's a couple reasons why I do that and why I recommend that for my clients, is because especially if you're in a calorie deficit, protein keeps you fuller longer, and it burns more calories than in the digestive process. Like, there's so many reasons for that. And women tend to, it's funny because they tend to underestimate underestimate carbs and fat and overestimate on the protein. So
that's one of the mistakes that women make, is underestimating how much protein, underestimating how many carbs and fats, and overestimating how much protein. Absolutely.
Yeah, correct. So this is why I still recommend 1 gram per pound, which is very close to 1.6 grams per kilo. But, if you're listening and you're trying to figure out, well, how much do I need? And maybe you want to lose 20 pounds, you could do that number on your desired weight. Mm-hmm. Because especially for those people that have, a significant amount of weight to lose, or desired weight to lose, it's going to be a big protein number if they're going on their current, and desired weight is entirely it's fine.
And
right?
you and I are close to our desired weight, so there's no need for, so those numbers work better. It works for us to do it the way that we do it based on per pound as well.
Yeah, and if you, like you said, if you're very active, if you're doing resistance training on the regular, there's no problem with having more, up to, even up to 2 grams. I think maybe some of the problems arise, or it's kind of like protein is expensive. And so those people that are having like 3 grams and 4 grams per kilo, that is kind of like, well, you're probably just peeing that out.
Our body can only use so much protein. And so,
it's just that ends up into becoming a calorie surplus,
and then it does us no good as far as the benefit. Our body can only utilize so much for benefit, and then it's going to store as fat, just like if we eat too much of anything.
And then the other thing, I just saw a study, and I think we could put it in the show notes, and the study was talking about the processed protein, like the bars and I have no problem with having a protein shake a day or recommending that for my clients. That can give you 25 grams of protein quite easily. And that's not going to be a problem. The myth is that too much protein, or that, having a protein shake is going to kill your kidneys and, or harm your kidneys. And the recommended amount of protein, 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight is not going to cause kidney issues unless you have an underlying kidney issue to begin with. And you would know that. But there is a link, and we'll put the study in the show notes, but it says the study talks about a link between cardiovascular events and 21% higher risk in people over 55 when their protein intake is of highly processed sources. So I think when you're looking at protein, consider whole foods over bars and shakes and protein water and protein chips and all the things that are in a package.
Yeah, that are being heavily marketed. There's actually, Shawna, I don't know if you've heard this, but there's a shortage on protein is getting very expensive. Protein powder, I shouldn't say just protein, not a shortage on protein, but a shortage on protein powder in particular.
Because it's so popular.
Because it's becoming so popular, and some are attributing it to the increase in GLP-1 medication, and people are getting the message that, hey, protein is going to help me spare some of my tone tissue, some of my strength tissue as I'm dieting or as I'm eating in a calorie deficit because I'm on medication. And because of that popularity, now the prices are spiking for protein powder, and the raw materials are just getting hard for the companies to get that make it.
So what are some of your favorite protein sources, Alli? I think we've got the message out, and women are getting the message that they need more protein, but some of them are just like, well, I don't know what to eat. Mm-hmm. What are some of your favorite sources?
Mine is nothing fancy, Shawna. It's nothing exciting. There's not going to be a TikTok about it. There's not going to be anybody marketing this and putting a cool label on it. I buy a lot of rotisserie chicken.
Yeah.
I buy eggs. I like eggs, and I combine I take some of the yolks out so that I can increase the whites, decrease the yolks, so that I still get some yolk, but I increase the lean protein.
Sorry, I'm
a small person.
Alli, there's nothing wrong with yolk, but just for those people that are looking to create a calorie deficit, if you ate 6 eggs.
I'm a small person and I want to stay a small person. So if I eat that many yolks, that's where there's a lot of nutrients there, but there's also more fat in the yolks, which are, as Shawna told us earlier, fat carries with it 9 calories per gram, whereas protein only carries 4. So I'm doing that to control the amount of calories so that I don't get myself into too much of a surplus and start gaining extra fat that I don't want. So, but these are things that don't have a fancy label. Eggs, rotisserie chicken, those are two of my. I eat a lot of Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
And I do eat protein powder. I have protein shake once a day, typically. Or either I mix it in oatmeal, the powder, I'll mix it in oatmeal, or I'll make a shake out of it. So that's, one meal. I don't do bars typically at this point. I mean, not to say that I haven't ever had a protein bar, but that's not something that I do on the regular. That's, because I already know I'm getting the processed protein powder from the shake.
Yeah.
What about you, Shawna? I know mine are so boring. Turkey. Yeah. I do some ground turkey too. That's the other one.
Yeah. And I'm the same with you. I am fortunate that I can have dairy. And so I really love the high protein milk because it's 20 grams per cup. It's, so I put the high protein milk in my coffee. I'll have like 125 mils in my coffee for 10 grams of protein. So I'll use the high protein milk. I eat a lot of cottage cheese, Greek yogurt. I'm not even having much protein powder these days because I'm just having a glass of milk because I prefer that to but I'll have a shake, especially when I'm traveling. I always have protein powder. I can attest that I've traveled now with Shawna, and she does have protein, and I had my protein shake. We both, we travel with it. It's travel. Yeah. So I'm not a bar person, but things that I think people overlook, aside from eggs, which are a great source, and hard-boiled eggs, things like canned tuna. I do like tuna. I love salmon. Salmon's another one that I do. A decent amount. Yeah, whether it's canned or like just like farm raised is leaner, but sometimes I do. Not farm raised. Wild caught is leaner. Sometimes I still do farm raised because it's easier to get. Yeah. So same. And I'm not a gourmet cook. Me either. I know that I have a bit more time now that I don't have kids at home. It's just I have a slower pace. But I still I don't have fancy meals all the time. I think a mistake people make is they think protein's so hard to get, so hard to make. Or it's so boring, or doesn't have a lot of taste, or I'm sick of chicken, I'm sick of turkey. Yeah. Guess what? Me too. Yeah. But guess what? I don't want to fall and break a hip because I have no muscle in my legs to hold my own balance. And I don't want to be struggling with my weight because I'm never full and I eat sugar all day and I'm addicted to it. Yes. And so I think a mistake people make is that every meal has to be a fiesta. No, every meal has to be a bit boring. Yes. Boring is that's a mistake. We underrate boring. Yes, because I'm not going to be overeating on boring foods. It's like, I know the foodies out there are just like cringing. Their ears are bleeding right now. But the fact is that we make nice meals maybe once or twice a week, and we'll have like really nice dinner. But then the other meals, the mistake people make is that every meal has to be different. No. Studies show that if you have more regular, repeatable foods, that it's easier to maintain your calories. Yes. Rather than having this smorgasbord and think about people that go on a cruise. Food everywhere, all the food, all the time. Is 7 pounds because there's so many options, and very few people can just have a nibble of this and a nibble of that. Like, it's so easy to get into a calorie surplus. So, consider having 2 or 3, 1 or 2 breakfast choices, 1 or 2 lunch choices, and then 2 or 3 dinner options that you rotate through. And then them on repeat. Yes, be boring with your food. Yeah. Get tired if you're not getting tired of eating the same things, then you're probably in a calorie surplus and you're probably struggling to get your clothes that you wore last year on this year. And that you're really, everything becomes about food. Everything we do, we celebrate with food. Food becomes our entertainment.
And if we could make food more boring instead of like the fiesta that Shawna mentioned more of the time, and then have our fiesta as a special thing, not a every meal kind of thing.
Every now and again. Exactly. So I think that is a common mistake that people make, is that, oh, I always have to be having something different. And no, it's totally fine to be boring.
Yes, yes. And not waiting until we feel like we have lost muscle or lost bone or lost strength to start getting enough protein. That's another mistake that a lot of gals are making, is waiting to get the like you said, we are getting the message, thank goodness. The sooner we can get the message and get going with our protein, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the best time to start increasing protein or quantifying protein is yesterday, but today's the second best time, before that loss happens. And then let's talk a little bit about plant protein, Alli, because
and before we talk about it, I'm going to give you Alli, because I have Crohn's disease and I have issues with certain things. I cannot do whey protein, which is superior to plant. I do use plant-based for my protein shakes, and it works well enough for me. Do I wish I could do whey? Absolutely. And Shawna will probably tell us why.
Well, there's something called a bioavailability of protein. And so, yes, we can get all our protein from plants. However, the bioavailability, that means the body's ability to be able to utilize the protein, to have the full amino acid panel that you need, is less with a plant-based diet. So vegetarians, yes, you absolutely can get all your protein on a vegetarian or vegan diet. Is it hard? Absolutely. You need to do a lot of thinking to be able to get your protein needs with plants. And the other thing
is not overdo it on your carbs at the same time. That's what makes it. I don't want to say it's impossible, but I don't know how people do that. And I do the plant-based protein shake, but then I eat chicken and eggs and turkey.
That.
So I'm eating other sources.
Yeah. So for example,
I just can't do that much concentrated dairy, because whey protein is very concentrated. I can handle a little dairy. I just can't handle the concentration of that much.
For example, if you rice and beans, create a plant-based full protein profile that your body needs. However, to get the same amount of protein for rice and beans as compared to a chicken breast, the quantity, the calories of rice and beans would be more like 500 and more like 100 for a chicken breast. So if you
expend a lot of your diet, a lot of your budget of your calories, you only get it so much calorie budget, or we start gaining fat. And if you spend all of it on rice and beans really quickly,
then you'll get protein, but you'll get a lot
of calories along the way.
Exactly. So plants are great, and we're not slamming or throwing shade on plant-based protein, but there's the caveat that it's not as bioavailable. And maybe if you are getting your 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of body weight strictly from plants, you might want to bump that up to 1.8 or 2 grams per kilo because of the bioavailability issues. So not to say that you can't do it, but
I don't do a level scoop of my plant-based. I'm like full scoop just to get that extra little bit if I can. But
exactly. So and that's not cheating, Alli. Like, a lot of people think that having that protein shake is kind of like cheating, and it's not. It's not. It can be a healthy part of your diet. I think the problem with the shakes and the bars is that when you're they are more processed than a chicken breast, but it is more convenient. Like, you can't throw a chicken breast in your purse.
Yeah, when you're traveling or you're on the road, that is one time when I will absolutely utilize some of those other sources. And one of the mistakes that I just thought of that happens with protein is a lot of people think that when we talk about protein shakes, what plant versus whey, that whey is from wheat because the words are very close. Whey and wheat are very close. And so people think, I have so many people along the way that have thought that whey protein came from wheat. And why that's a mistake or a problem is because if you don't realize, if you think it's wheat and then you eat that protein bar that has whey protein or whatever kind of food, and you're like, why does this make my stomach hurt? And you don't know why, but then you may have dairy issues like me, very concentrated dairy for me. And so if I didn't know and I was making the mistake of, oh, I'm having wheat, I don't understand or realize that I may have gastric distress from eating something that contains that, and it may not be a shake, it may be a bar or something else. So understanding that this is a dairy whey, if you're eating whey protein, that is a dairy-based product. And if you have dairy challenges, then anything that's got protein on the label, or even if it doesn't have it on the front of the label and you're eating it for a protein source that's processed, be aware of how that's going to suit you as far as your gastrointestinal system.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the bars and powders is that they don't agree with everyone. So
absolutely, they don't. Yeah,
buying a powder, don't buy a barrel full, buy a sample pack, because sometimes it just doesn't, it doesn't agree with you. So you need to try a different brand. And the thing with bars is that bars have sugar alcohols in them, and that can be very bloating for some people. So it's probably not the protein that's bloating you, it's the additives. So
they have lots of additives. So there could be many numbers of things that could be aggravating your system, which is why I use those sparingly.
Correct. Exactly. That's why I know I can eat a chicken breast. And is it exciting? No, not always.
Does it bother my stomach? No.
Exactly. So sometimes those are the tried and true boring things. The other thing is that another mistake, Alli, that I wanted to talk about is that people tend to focus on the scale and not on body composition. So we're looking at weight loss instead of fat loss. If weight loss is, we don't want to lose weight at all costs. We want to maintain the muscle. We want to maintain that positive body composition that leans more heavily towards muscle, because muscle is metabolically active, because muscle is, keeps you functional, all the reasons we talked about before.
And strong women age better. We can function better.
Yes. And so, again, coming back to maintaining that muscle is prioritizing protein, and protein at every meal. We never talked about why it's important to, we don't want to just have our protein at dinner. Like lots of times breakfast is a piece of toast and a coffee or a bowl of cereal. Lunch is a salad, and then might have one chicken breast at dinner. You're probably having only 30 grams of protein a day, which is probably only 1/3 of what you need. The goal is to have protein at every meal. And let me explain a little bit why that is important. Is one of the reasons is because it helps to moderate your blood sugar. So when we ingest carbs will will get turned into glucose, which will go into your bloodstream. This is all normal, nothing bad happening. And then insulin responds because we don't want to have high blood sugar. So our pancreas pumps out the insulin. And then when insulin responds, 3 things happen. That energy that you've just ingested is either used immediately, or it's put into your liver and muscle for later use, or it's pumped into, it's stored for a later day. It's stored for energy for later as fat. So we don't want to have high blood sugar. We don't want to have a high insulin response. We don't want to have these spikes and valleys of insulin and of blood sugar and then insulin. So when we eat protein with our carbohydrate, our blood sugar doesn't spike as much. It slows down the digestion of those sugars so that you have these rolling hills of blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up, blood sugar goes down a bit. You don't have those peaks and valleys, because the peaks and valleys also are the energy surges. When in the middle of the afternoon, when you've had a carb heavy lunch, how many people have felt like, oh, now I need to have a nap? It's because you've had a blood sugar surge and then an insulin surge, and then your blood sugar actually goes below baseline. So protein at every meal helps you to maintain a level blood sugar, which also helps with insulin resistance and all the things that you're hearing about metabolic disorders.
Absolutely. I love that you touched on that. And also the importance, one of the things that you said, it just helps us understand, if I do have a little extra carbs at a meal, and hopefully I got some protein too, but one of the things you mentioned is you're either going to use that immediately. So one of the things I can do if I do have a little bit of a fiesta meal is go move.
Yeah,
If I go move my body, that is going to at least utilize some of that sugar instead of it just spiking to nowhere for no reason and having nowhere to go and nothing to do. And so, yeah.
And I wanna point out that you said all that sugar, because guess what? Even your bread, your oatmeal, like that all gets, like vegetables are carbs. Everything gets broken down into glucose in the body. So when Alli said all that sugar that you ate, you might just say, but I didn't eat any sugar. I had fruits and vegetables and potatoes and, and
Which
pasta.
all convert to sugar.
It all gets converted to glucose.
Glucose, yes.
Yes. And
Which the better term would be glucose or blood glucose. On the street, we say blood sugar. That's the terminology you hear. But yes.
Yeah. And so, like you said, Alli, one of my top tips that my clients are using that I always recommend and use myself is walking 10 minutes after any meal. It helps to bring down that blood sugar, bring down the insulin, and you digest food much more efficiently. You feel better. You're less likely to be in a calorie surplus, because it's those, you don't have to go run a marathon every day to burn the calories. You just have to move more, just like Alli's walking on her walking pad right now. It's slow and easy movement all through the day. So I think we need to my key takeaways for today, Alli, are the fact that we need to prioritize protein at every meal, but whole foods rather than the protein water or the bars, the protein chips, the labeled packaged things. And I'm going to steal this from Dr. Stuart Phillips. He says the strength training bakes the cake, but the protein that you eat is the icing on it. So you need the protein, but you also need the strength training.
Yeah.
And the third thing is to start now. Don't wait any longer to look at your protein intake and consider some strength training for the best healthy aging.
Yeah. And so one habit that each person listening could do could start this week, that would help them have a big impact on her health. One of our listeners, all of our listeners, would be I think one of the things you said early on, logging.
Yes.
Start there. If you don't know where to start there. And then like another thing that Shawna said was getting some protein at each meal. And you can see that when you log. You can see, am I getting that at each meal? So that would be one of my takeaways that I would suggest. If you don't know where to start logging. And don't complain. Yes, it's a pain. Just like eating boring food. It's a pain, but you know what? It works.
Yeah. And the beauty of logging is you log so that you don't have to food log. And there's actually an episode that we can add to the show notes about how I talk about logging, because, once you start to connect the dots, once you have an idea, and you know what, I've been logging for a good part of my adult life, and every night, I don't log constantly every day now, but I go back to it from time to time, because as I get hungry, and medium potato is the size of my head, right? Or I put more on my plate than my body actually needs. So checking, having that check with the logging is and you can do MyFitnessPal is a free app. And it's very intuitive and quite easy to use. So that would be my wish for the day. And I think you've already said yours. So I hope this helps for women to understand that we need more protein. We don't need exclusively protein. Let's look for those whole food protein sources and get lifting something.
Love it.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.